it was one of the best debuts I've seen. It was incredible. You know, I've never seen a player just completely take control of the game. Hailed at the time as being a sort of a maverick player. And then obviously the lifestyle that came with that in those days, you know, out and about with all the rock stars and all that sort of thing. That was just their lifestyle. And he was very young and he got, you know, and that was his life. Maybe at the time, Gareth and Roy had a little bit of there was some butting of head. So maybe their lunch times and all that, they weren't sat next to each other. But flew Harry in on a helicopter to Newport. In the media, in the local media, Harry Redknapp, blah, 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 there's a picture of me and all that sort of thing. And then suddenly, and that, by the way, the fans at Newport are brilliant fans, but straight away they start thinking they've got some messiah here that's going to come and just wave a magic wand at the team. And Harry Redknapp's behind him. We're going to get all these players from Spurs and this Mourinho and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't think you need all that. That the players are all doing the national anthem and stood at the halfway point of the pitch, and then you got Vladimir Putin in a glass box just hanging over the top of the stand there, and he does this speech. So the kickoff time now is late, and you got Putin doing a speech, and I remember looking at the players, and some of the players were in tears, like crying. There's just so much emotion, and he stopped talking. We didn't understand anything he was saying, obviously, and the whole stadium erupted. And I've never heard it. And some of the players are crying. I've never heard anything like it. I want to be in the Premier League.
Hello, and welcome back to A Clear and Obvious podcast. As always, I'm your host, Archie Corbett, and today I'm joined by the wonderful Sam Cole. Firstly, Sam, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, Archie, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Doing fairly well. Finally got a haircut, which is nice. Makes a nice change from my dad giving me a haircut for the last 3 months. So it's a welcome break. But enough about us, because we are joined by a very special guest. We are joined by Anthony Hudson. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Archie, Sam, how you doing? It's good to see you both. I'm obviously over in the States in Chicago, so it's good to hear some familiar voices with you, speaking to you guys today.
Good stuff. So I mean, you might as well just jump straight into the questions, if that's all good with you.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. So it only seems right to sort of start with your upbringing, sort of go kind of chronologically. So how would you describe your upbringing first and foremost?
Listen, I had a really good upbringing. I think all young people, when you're growing up, you think you have a terrible upbringing, and then you get older, and then you realise actually, you know, you had really good parents, and you know they do the best they can, and then you start reflecting on experiences that you have, good and bad, and the challenges, and then you start to see how they were key to your development and key, especially the adversity you go through. And but I guess as a kid, really football was in my family. My dad played at Chelsea and Arsenal. He played for England. So I grew up in a very just a complete football family. I mean, all we ever talked about was football. Our whole lives revolved around it. Revolved around a Saturday, going to games, and it was just amazing. And I think as a kid, when you start going to games and you're standing in the crowd, you know, with the fans that, you know, back home, the fans that you get there, it's just incredible. And I think from a young age, all you want to do is be a footballer. You want to play. And that was what I wanted to do. And then, so I ended up going into, left school at 16, signed for West Ham. Ended up leaving West Ham, went to sign for a team in Holland. And my playing career didn't turn out to what I dreamt of it being. And I came out of playing and I fell into coaching, and really it's taken me to lots of different places.
Yeah, so you sort of touched on it there with your dad, obviously football legend Alan Hudson. How much of a role did he play in getting you into football? Because you talk about obviously being in a very football orientated house, and me and Sam obviously know about that quite a lot because we're both in the similar household. Like how would you describe his role in getting you into playing?
Yeah, look, I think it was a few things. I mean, as a kid, when you're around, whenever I used to see my dad, he was surrounded by top players at the time. So, and these are all people that you idolize and you worship. And even my dad, he was my hero. And I remember I used to carry around he played his debut against West Germany, and to this day, and listen, I'm obviously biased, but I also know what I'm talking about. And it was one of the best debuts I've ever seen. It was at Wembley, and England beat West Germany, and my dad was. It was one of the best debuts I've seen. It was incredible. I've never seen a player just completely take control of the game, and even to the point where at times, and this was against the current world champions, at times he just almost mocked the Germans, like he was just little nutmegs and dropping his shoulder, and he was completely controlled the game. And I remember I used to carry that old VHS video around with me everywhere. I used to take it to school with me. It was just in my bag the whole time. When I went round my mate's house, I'd put it on. So I was very, very proud. But I guess the influence came from not just my dad and, really him being my hero, but, my mum was very encouraging of what I wanted to do. My brother played. My brother was a really good player. My cousin was at Tottenham. He was a really good player. So it was just all around us, and it was. But certainly, I think that you really idolise when your dad is my dad was my hero, and that was a big inspiration.
Yeah, because you talk about sort of the closest you have with your dad there, and you idolising him. What was the relationship like, obviously, with him growing up, and how has that changed since?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's similar to what I said at the beginning. You sort of, as you get older, you look back and you realise that you had you had everything you needed. Certainly, in my case, you had a good upbringing, you had opportunity, and certainly with my dad, I think my dad was a young player. He made his debut for Chelsea at such a young age. He was hailed at the time as being a sort of a maverick player. And then obviously the lifestyle that came with that in those days, down the King's Road and in Chelsea, and, with, out and about with all the rock stars and all that sort of thing. That was just their lifestyle. And he was very young, and he got, and that was his life. And he was a top player, and everyone loved him. I mean, I remember, I lived plenty of years up in Stoke, and he was incredible up in Stoke. And there was, I as a kid, like older supporters of Stoke would know who my dad was. And I remember one time this guy came up to me and he grabbed me and he was like, "Your dad was a genius." And I went, No, I appreciate it. And he grabbed and he went, "No, I need to tell you." And he looked at me and he started crying. And he said, "Your dad was a genius. I've never seen it." And like the effect that and he was adored by those fans. So I think as growing up and being a family man, and my mum and my dad, probably I didn't have as much of a close relationship with him when I was younger, but certainly I think as we both matured, and I think you get older, you learn from your experiences. Over the years we've become very, very close. I know he's very proud of my coaching, and I'm extremely proud of what he's done and who he is, as I am with my mum as well. So, but I think all of it. I think as an individual, you have to take responsibility. I think that's the key thing. You have to take responsibility of your life. And there's one thing I really can't stand is, when I hear people saying they're the reason the way they are now because of what someone else did back then. I can't see that. I think you have to make, you're the one who's in control of your life. You have to make the most. You've got to learn from things. Most of all, you've got to take responsibility. So, our relationship is really good. And I think we're both very proud of each other.
Moving on to your playing career, in the youth setup at West Ham, I think I'm right in saying you roomed with Michael Carrick. Did you learn a lot from him, and do you still keep in contact?
Yeah, to answer the second part, we do still keep in touch. Not a huge amount, but I'd say every other month we exchange messages. He's done incredible. Like he's been incredible what he's done. He's had a great career, and now hopefully he's going to go on and be a top coach and whatever he wants to do there. I think the one thing that stood out with me, I think I ran with him for maybe a year and a half, and it was just me and him. And then in one house, but me and him were in the same room. We had these two single beds, and Grant McCann was in the other room. So he was a year older than us. obviously Grant went on to have a really good career, and now he's managing at Hull City. So I think the biggest thing I learned from Michael was, first of all, he's just an outstanding talent. Like, at that age, you could see that this guy, you know, both feet, range of passing, quality on the ball, vision, great vision, and just, for, you know, a big guy. He was bigger than all of us at the time, but had unbelievable balance. But just like, he was different. But on top of that is just mentality. You know, he was so hungry to make it. And by the way, everyone's hungry to make. Everyone wants to make it. Everyone's hungry, but he did everything that you needed to do in order to make it and more. You know, he was incredibly disciplined, did all the right things. You know, when you know, some of the youth team players or the reserve team players went out with the first team players, like, he wouldn't go out. Like, he did all the right things. He was just he had his head screwed on. Brilliant trainer, and just lived for Saturday. Yeah, he's gone on to have an incredible career. What a player to watch.
How did during your playing career experiences with the like of Carrick prepare you for a life in coaching?
Yeah, look, I don't know if my experiences with people like Michael prepared me for coaching, other than, I would say, around that time I had a coach, Tony Carr at West Ham, who's you know, almost a legend at the club, given the players he's brought through, and Joe Cole and Frank Lampard, Rio, all these players that have come through the youth team at West Ham. And he's known to have a reputation of being, you know, a top coach at developing players. So around that time, there were definitely sort of coaching principles that stuck out to me. You know, there was like 2 or 3 things that, like, every now and then that pop up, and I think that's what Tony used to say. And they're just little things that stick out to you, where at the time you don't really think too much of it, but they're just really simple things, but really, really important principles about the game. And then I think the biggest influence on my coaching has probably just been going and studying other coaches, and just getting really obsessed about learning and watching other coaches and watching teams play and analysing teams. I think that's probably been the biggest part. But certainly that era was, I think, the one that stood out was Tony Carr.
Yeah, because you sort of, we'll go on to your managing career. We'll go on to sort of who was the biggest inspiration in management? You sort of touched on it there when you were first getting into coaching. Who did you sort of idolise or get along with, perhaps?
Yeah, look, I always really looked at coaches that had to work their way from not a big playing career, or coaches that had got success with smaller teams and doing it, playing a good style of football. You know, I remember, you know, people like, I always talk about Bielsa. I think Bielsa's been a legend. Like, wherever he is, wherever he's been working at, I've always made an effort and gone to see him work and spend time there. There's a coach, Jorge Sampaoli, who's obviously a top manager, who's at Argentina, but many years ago, and he kind of had a kind of a checkered start to his career, and then he managed Universidad de Chile, and if you have a spare few hours on your hand, then you can get access to their games when they won everything. But it wasn't just they won everything; they did it playing really good football. Like, it was exciting to watch, and he sort of captivated the club. The fans loved it. It was just brilliant, and I think that they're the things that really inspire you. Someone that can put a team on the field that plays great football, that is successful, but also that the crowd and makes the fans proud of the team. And I think that, you know, so coaches like that have been very inspirational to me. And I've always tried to, anyone like that, I really admire and respect. I want to go and try and see them and watch them work. So I've been fortunate in that way to get out and about and see as many as I can.
That's brilliant. So you got into coaching at a very young age. At 27, I believe your first head coach job was. Do you feel there was added pressure going into the industry at such a young age?
Yeah, I'd started coaching like 23, 24. I got an assistant coaching job. I think I was 25. And I think even then, and then I started, because a lot of the players were my age or older. And I think what I learned, and probably has been a real focus of mine, and maybe in recent years is something that I've maybe changed a little bit, because of the age difference and because you're young and you have to earn respect. I just focused on just being ultra prepared, ultra organized, making sure the players knew exactly why we were doing what we were doing. The players enjoyed training. The players not only enjoyed it, but they understood that there was a purpose to the session. They understood it, and I communicated in a way that they understood it. And if ever they had any questions about anything, I had an answer for it. So that was my biggest focus. And I always wanted to be kind of ahead of the game in trying to always putting on really great sessions for them. And I think as a young coach, I think you have to earn your respect. You can't walk in there because you have and just rely on your name or your history as a coach. You have to find another way to earn respect. And that was what I focused on. And that really was something that I enjoyed. I felt it worked. I think the players respected it. But certainly when I got my first manager's job, for sure, it comes with the pressure of, first of all, you have the people around the place that they wanted the job, or they wanted their friends to get the job, or the people in the media that felt other people should get the job. But then the added pressure is, this guy's not, he's in no way he can do the job. He's too young, no experience, all those sorts of things. And I think, but listen, pressure comes with every single appointment. I think even more so as a younger manager, because as soon as you get, a bad spell or a loss, the easy and the lazy response from everyone is, it's his age, he's not experienced enough, and it's just a lazy comment. And I'm sure a lot of the times that may be the case, and maybe in my circumstance, maybe that was at times, and other times it wasn't. But unfortunately, that just comes with it, and you have to find a way just to get through it, and you have to find a way to buy time. You have to find a way to keep pushing forward and build your experience. So, but they're the great challenges about the job. You like adversity and pressure and criticism and challenges like that. I think that's what's great about the job. It's what's great about life. So certainly it makes you a lot tougher, and it certainly gives you a lot of experience.
Yeah. So you were on the same UEFA qualification course as two very different but very well-known characters. So Gareth Southgate and Roy Keane. What was it like learning alongside those two very different characters in your time then?
Yeah, it was good. I think I was more in Roy Keane. So we had there's like two groups on the same course, and Gareth was in the other group, and Roy was on my group. So I probably got a little bit more exposed to Roy. And I mean, the first thing that hit me with Roy was he was just a really nice guy, like a good guy, down to earth, and really funny. Like just funny in a just an understated way, in a really quiet way. You'd be eating lunch and he just comes out with little one, and he's just got a little grin on his face, but just so funny. And then look, he's a great player. Like we all know he's a great player, and he's played at the highest level. But I think football people know this for sure. But I think at times his reputation and his his physicality and his aggression can probably get in the way of the fact that he was actually a class footballer. Like he was very, very good. And so on the course, when we're playing all these games, like he just straight away you could see the quality on the ball. Like first of all, like he's a top player. Aside from the physicality and the aggression and all that, which I love. And then he was. I think it was the pre-season where he was going to Sunderland as manager. So that was I remember he kept nipping out, and he was transfer and on the phone and all that sort of thing. But he was very open, very willing to learn, very respectful. And I think when you see someone of that experience and stature in the game to go into that environment and really to be taught how to be a coach by people that are educators, that, you know, many people in Roy's position could quite easily go, listen, I've won Champions League, I've been, you know, captain of one of the greatest clubs in the world. But he was just so humble, wanted to learn, and that has an effect on a young coach. That really does. It just in terms of values, in terms of doing the right thing, in terms of respect. So for sure, and maybe at the time Gareth and Roy had a little bit of there was some butting of heads, so maybe their lunch times and all that they weren't sat next to each other. But it was good. Yeah, the courses, you know, the courses. I love the courses. I'm trying. Like, I've done my pro license. I want to do it again. I want to do the one out here because the guys out here are really good. So I want to do it again. But I think on the courses, the content of the courses are really good. You take things that you like, some things you don't like, you leave. But as well as that, the people that you meet on the courses are brilliant. The other coaches. And you know, you stay in touch with these guys for your career, and you build some really close bonds. So it was a really good experience.
Coming back to England after your time in America, you took a job coaching with Spurs. First of all, what was it like working with Harry Redknapp?
Yeah, Harry's first of all, he's a really good man. I remember in my 4 seasons in America as assistant coach and then as a manager, in the off season I would go back to England or Europe, and I would just travel all around, and just all I did is spent all my off season watching teams train and managers. Went to Holland, Italy, Spain, England, and every year I would go and see Harry wherever he was. And I remember the year before I said, Harry, look, I want to come back to England next year, and I want to get a manager's job in lower league football. And I said, can you help me? And he said, well, look, why don't you just come and coach with our reserve team? You know, spend as long as you want here, and that will help you get something, and we'll help you. So I came back. There was Tim Sherwood, Les Ferdinand, Chris Ramsey, all in the reserve developmental squad at the time, and it was brilliant. Those guys were great, like Tim and Les and Chris. Chris Ramsey's a fantastic coach. They were all very different. Les, brilliant personality, great with the strikers. Tim was like a man, you know, he's a real like a more of a manager than a coach, but they were really good guys. And then obviously Harry and Harry just creates a great environment, like it, you know, and everyone's walking around with a smile on their face. He creates a really good environment in his club, and that's what I felt. You know, I just enjoyed it there. I enjoyed being around him. He was just a good man, always wanted to help. So we've just kept in touch ever since. But look, Harry's a top manager. I think right now he's probably missed in the game, but he's doing lots of other things where probably earning a lot of money as well.
Did I know at Spurs that Harry Redknapp dubbed you the next Mourinho? Did that add any unneeded pressure when taking the Newport County job?
Yeah, look, I think hindsight. I think as a young manager, if I was to do it again, I'd be a lot more patient. I think and even now, I have to remind myself now, I need to be more patient, you know, because impatience, in my case, can make you very uncomfortable, and you always want to keep progressing at a rate that maybe times you just need to slow down a bit. And maybe that was an example, you know, when I was a young manager, I was just so impatient, and also you have, well, certain, I don't say you, like, but in my case, I wasn't afraid to put my neck on the line. I wasn't afraid to make big statements and work and just put my neck on the line. I wasn't afraid of that. So I think that going to Newport, you know, there was things like what Harry said. But by the way, was really nice of him, and but you know, all that sort of stuff is great of him to say. but it does come with an added pressure, and it does. And I think in football, one thing you don't need to encourage is pressure, because pressure is always going to be there. So I think you learn as you become a little bit more experienced is just to keep calm, just to focus on what you can control, and there's no need going around saying. But I didn't say that. Harry said it. So, but look, I certainly don't regret it. I don't, so I don't think anyone's ever asked me if that really put pressure on me. But I think when I remember we had, I don't know if it was pre-season, but we flew Harry in on a helicopter to Newport. We had a golf day, and so the owners of the team, there was golf day, Newport County, and I said, one of them I think said to me, "Can you get Harry to come down and be a guest of honor and speak at the dinner?" So I said, "Well, I'll ask him." So I said to Harry, "Look, we have a golf day." I said, I think the owner, if you want to come, he'll pick you up in Bournemouth on a helicopter, and he'll fly you into Newport, come and play golf, have dinner, and he'll fly you back. It was like, fair enough. So Harry came and we flew him in golf, and we had dinner. I remember that night. It was funny because I remember that night, sat him and Kevin Bond were at the table, we're having dinner, and I was the next day I bought my dog. I bought a dog the next day, and I remember talking to Harry and Kevin that night about looking, and they were saying, "Don't do it. You're a manager. You're not going to have time. Don't do it." And I'm like, "I'm going to do it. I've got to get a dog." And they've been all over the world with me so far. My dogs are here in Chicago. So, but anyway, obviously all of that's picked up in the media and the local media. Harry Redknapp, blah blah blah. There's a picture of me and all that sort of thing. And then suddenly, by the way, the fans at Newport are brilliant fans, but straight away they start thinking they've got some messiah here that's going to come and just wave a magic wand at the team, and Harry Redknapp's behind him. We're going to get all these players from Spurs and this Mourinho and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't think you need all that. You don't need to be doing things, especially as a young manager. You just need to get your head down, stay calm, stay cool, focus on what you can control. You don't need to be creating all the extra stuff around the edges.
So you then made the move into international management. Was this an avenue you'd always imagined you'd go down in your career, or was this sort of caught you by surprise, if you will?
Yeah, it was never in the plan. I just want to be a top manager and keep progressing. When I got sacked at Newport, obviously it's a tough time. You get sacked, and it's like, where'd you go from here? You're a young manager, you got sacked, and so someone said to me, "Look, you need to first of all stop feeling sorry for yourself, learn from it, and get back out there, go to games, get back to work." So I spoke to John Still, who was the manager at Dagenham at the time, and John was a really nice guy, and he helped me a lot. I said, "John, look, can I come down and maybe join in with a few sessions?" And John was brilliant. He said, "Look, come down, I'll let you coach the team." Like, he let me take sessions and that sort of thing. So I remember for like 4 or 5 months after that, I was coaching every day, going to the games. And I remember one day I was in the manager's office before the game. They were playing Gillingham, and I was sat in John's office, and John said, "Look, I'm going to go and take the team talk." He said, "I'll see you in a second." So he left the office, and Peter Taylor was in the office with me. So we just started chatting. And I've never met Pete before. We'd spoke before on the phone, but I'd never met him. We had a chat. He was managing Bahrain, and they were playing Sweden in a couple of weeks. And as a young man, I'm like, that's brilliant. They're playing Sweden. What a big game. And Bahrain, wow, it's amazing. And then a few weeks later, he called me up and he said, "Do you want to come and coach our Olympic team, the under 23s?" And I was like, "Yeah, 100%. So it just happened as a result of I believe of being in the right place at the right time, but by doing the right things. And I think the easy thing would have been, and I mentioned this at the beginning, in terms of taking responsibility. Like, things happen, like things are going to happen. There's adversity. Things aren't going to go your way, whether it's in your upbringing or your start of your career, or in your career. And I felt quite easily after getting sacked, you can just go and hide and put your head down. But I felt that came as a result of being every day going out, building the trust with John, coaching on the field, being in that office that day, meeting Peter Taylor. So that's how that came about.
So yeah, because you sort of talk about that all sort of happening by chance, and then you obviously went on to be the Bahrain under-23s manager. I'll be honest, I don't know much about football in Bahrain. I don't know about you, Sam. What's it like there from a footballing standpoint? So talent level, culture, that sort of thing. Because it must have been quite a culture shock.
Yeah, it's amazing. Honestly, it's. I mean, picture this, right? I was in Newport, living in Newport with my little dog, my new dog that they told me not to get. Next thing I know, literally, I was on a flight to Japan. So my first game was in Japan. I didn't go to Bahrain first. And I remember Pete was on this tour with me because my first tour, so he came on the tour. I think it was an Olympic qualifier. And I remember just going straight to the hotel, bite to eat, on the bus, we're going training. And I remember that night, I'm setting up the field. I'm putting the cones down, and the team are running around the field, warming up. I'm putting the cones down. And I just stopped, and I looked around. I'm like, what am I doing in Japan? Like, last week I was in Newport County. So I'm like, it was amazing. I mean, so your first week you start realizing we had our own chef with us, and you have all, in the hotel there in Japan's a beautiful place, unbelievable hotel. We've got our own chef there for the under-23s, and you start learning about, first of all, they don't like this rice. We have this proper rice. We need this. Everything's so specific and particular. Different prayer times. This group's going to go and pray at that time. This group's going to go at this time. So you have to adapt your schedule. But overall, it was an amazing experience. The talent of the players is very, very good. I mean, there's one kid in my team now who's playing at Slavia Prague. Just played in the Champions League. He played against Inter Milan, I think it was, right before the lockdown. I think he was the first Bahraini player. But there's some really talented players there. But an amazing place, amazing culture, and very, very competitive in the region. So that all the countries they don't, national pride, don't want to lose to each other. So there's a lot at stake. You can imagine, and it's the environment there. So it was just brilliant. I loved it, and it was a great experience. Love working with the players, and I learned a lot from Peter Taylor. So it was a great experience.
What was your relationship like with Peter Taylor? Because we know him as obviously this great coach and everything. But what was your relationship personally like with him?
Really good. Yeah, Pete was almost like I'd say he's probably like a father figure. He's just I think one thing I think anyone that first of all, for me, I have a huge amount of respect for him because of him as a human being. And I think even before you get to the coaching and what he's done in the game and all that sort of stuff, I think he's just a good man, and you enjoy his company. And in a footballing environment, he's just brilliant with people. So I think that was the biggest thing. And then obviously as a manager, he's got so much experience, at all levels. But I don't think I've ever met anyone that has a bad word to say about him. I think when I speak to players that have worked for him, they've all got, they all respect him and they like him. So yeah, he's just a good man, and I think that is something that's as important as being if not probably more, as being a good coach. Just being a good person and respecting people and building that. Having that environment where it's based upon those things.
So back to sort of your time in Bahrain. What was the decision-making process behind leaving Bahrain after signing a contract extension so soon before your departure?
Yeah, it's a good question. That is, I think the big attraction, because New Zealand got in touch, and I think the big attraction was the opportunity to go to the World Cup. And I remember I'd watched the 2010 World Cup, and it's crazy really, because Pete took over Bahrain when Bahrain fired their manager because New Zealand beat them in the final to go to the World Cup. It was that they had a playoff with Asia. So it's funny how it all comes back around. And I remember watching the 2010 World Cup, and they had players like Ryan Nelson and Winston Reid and Tommy Smith. It was just Shane Smeltz. Like they had that World Cup. I think they went unbeaten in that World Cup. They played Italy, Paraguay. They did really, really well. And I just saw something about that New Zealand team, and I guess Ryan Nelson epitomizes it. The sort of Kiwi mentality, honest, tough. I think they're the two key things: honest and tough. They looked like as a team, they were really together and close and played for each other. And I think when you see that, you're like, that would be a great team to work with, and they'd be great players to work with. And obviously the opportunity to go to the World Cup. So when that came, it was a decision I made, and I went there, and I to be honest, at times I felt bad about leaving Bahrain, but I didn't really look back. But it was it was a tough decision at the time.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of an opportunity you have to take when it sort of comes to you in your career. So you led New Zealand to the 2017 Confederations Cup, and you had a lot of praise from managers at that tournament as well as past players in your time there because you did brilliantly with them. Could you describe sort of what that meant for you in terms of getting them to that tournament?
Yeah, I think New Zealand should be getting to that tournament. So I probably. I took over the team and they'd failed to get to the tournament. They'd failed to get there, and then they played their playoff against Mexico. And I think, after the first game, they were out. The first leg, I think overall they lost 9-2. They got hammered, and the team was in a bad way. And, there were players that didn't want to come back and represent the country. There was, the top European players didn't want to come back. It was a tough time. So we had to change a lot of things, and then we had to change the culture, and we had to get the players really feeling proud again, playing for their country and wanting to come back and play for us, and also building a team where we could be competitive. So I felt we did that, and going to the Confederations Cup, although it was kind of bittersweet because I felt we could have done more. A team like New Zealand, you're heavily reliant. I wouldn't say you're heavily reliant, but it's especially in your attacking positions, and you need your best players. And I think, our main striker was Chris Wood. If Chris, I remember when we played it in the playoff against Peru, and Woodsy was injured. And it's the worst possible time to lose a player like Chris Wood. But then for a team like New Zealand, if you lose Chris Wood, you don't really have the quality and the depth to be able to go and to score against teams like Mexico and Peru and these teams. So it was kind of bittersweet. But look, all I can say is this: I loved every minute in the confeds, the players. We played against Mexico, and I remember it was probably one of the best first halves I think we've ever had. They were. The whole game, really, they were brilliant. But one thing we lacked, we went 1-0 up. We probably should have been 2 or 3-0 up against Mexico. Their bench was going crazy, just because I think we just rattled them. We played really good football. Woodsy had a few chances that I think if he was in top form, he would have put them away. He was just coming back from injury. He ended up scoring a great goal. But the game should have been probably 2 or 3-0 up. And then we get to around 60 minutes. And what we found with our team was that just fitness levels, because we've got 5 or 6 players in the starting 11 and on the bench that are not playing in first teams of professional teams. These are guys that are in squad players not playing. Some of them weren't even with professional players. But then we got Woodsy in there. We've got Tommy Smith. We've got some, other senior players in there. So that's where we fell down. And you could see just the complete dip. And then when you're playing against a team like Mexico, they got some quality, and they can really pick you apart. But the experience was brilliant. It was a great experience, and one that I'll never forget.
So there's one thing that I sort of want to pick up on that you spoke quite publicly about the national body not being able to find suitable fixtures for the All Whites in your time as head coach. Do you think that's sort of the main reason that teams like New Zealand and smaller nations like them can't necessarily, well, they struggle to progress the quality of their national team to a major tournament, for instance?
Yeah, I think as a manager, you have to fight for resources. You have to fight for resources for your team. I think, it takes. There's a lot of teams around the world, and you see people talk about culture and values, and it's written on walls all over the world. And every organizer you go in there, and it's like, we're brave. We want to be the best we can. All these slogans and catchphrases. Well, it can't just be the team that are trying to live to these and talking about it every day, because you need everyone to be brave and to be bold and to really back and support what you're doing. And I think, yeah, for sure, teams like that, because I think New Zealand have so much opportunity there. I mean, there's so much quality coming through. Even now, there's some really, really top players coming through. As it stands, the players they have, they're capable of going to a World Cup for sure. But in order to do it, they need everyone behind them. They need everyone to support them. They need to keep pushing raising the bar in terms of standards in the country, with the team. They need to or they've got the All Blacks on their doorstep, and that really is a team that they talk about values and they live them, and it's everyone, and not just the front office. It's everyone. They hold the team to a high standard, and I think that's almost that real integrity and fight to want to be the best is what needs to happen on the football side, because they've got quality there, and they've got potential to be a really, really good team.
Yeah, because in a nation like New Zealand, which is so rugby orientated, when you're the head coach of a national team, do you sometimes maybe feel like the football team was sort of pushed to one side in favour of the rugby team when it comes to funding or sort of issues like that? Do you feel like there was more of a focus on rugby and that held you back in some regard as well?
No, I don't think any time, you look at the rugby team and you say, oh, because of them, this is why. I think we tried. My personal view is I tried to embrace it. We weren't trying to compete with them. First of all, they're one of the most successful teams in the world. So what can we learn? Can we learn from them? Can we go and, whilst I'm in New Zealand, is there anything I can go and learn from these guys to bring back and help our team? I remember in camps on times in between meetings and meals and all that. I remember speaking to players about it, and I'd share stories about, look, a few weeks ago I was down with the All Blacks, Steve Hansen, and I went in this, and guess what they did? They do this. And then the team, went into one meeting with the All Blacks, and the players get up and presented the meeting, and they did. And I'd tell them stories about it, and in a way to say, look, we could, this might help us. But the players loved it. So I think we almost needed to embrace and try and learn as much as we can. But at no point did I feel that because of them we just had to be the best team that we could be, and try but strengthen our relationship with teams like the other national teams in the country. I think that was really, really important.
After leaving New Zealand, you took the manager role at the Colorado Rapids. What attracted you back to club management after your stint in international management?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, because I think as a young coach, and I might have mentioned this before, about as a young coach, you really focus on being a top coach and being really technically prepared. So you earn your respect that way, and you buy yourself credit and respect. And because I loved, and I still love, being on the training field and coaching and developing and helping and shaping a team. I love that. I really do. I was desperate to do it on a daily basis, because in an international football, it was just, I was frustrated because I wanted to be on the training pitch every day. And I think probably that desire and frustration to be on the training pitch every day made me probably want to probably jump too quickly. And again, I've mentioned about being impatient, and that's, impatience can not be a good thing at times. So, but the desire to want to be on the training pitch every day was something that was heavily involved in the reason I went to Colorado.
In your time at the Rapids, you made comments about the gap in quality in the MLS and how teams like yours couldn't compete with the bigger franchises. How would you fix that? And do you think this is a problem that the MLS needs to address to become a fairer league?
No, look, I think MLS have done a great job in getting the league to where it is now. I think they've done an incredible job, and I think the way that they've used marquee players, and they call them DPs out here, the way they've used DPs has been brilliant for the league, because it's helped. These guys have not only raised the bar in terms of quality, but they've also given the league profile, much needed profile. So I think the league have done a great. Guys, if you were to come out here and go to some of the stadiums and the games, and you wouldn't believe it, like that some of the LAFC and Portland, Seattle, these teams, the crowds are unbelievable, the atmosphere is unbelievable. It's like back home, like it's incredible. And by the way, the standard now is really, really good. So everything they've done is good. I think I was in a situation where right at the end I made some comments where I look back, I reflect back, and they're sort of similar comments that you hear every week in England, because that's just the way things are in England. Managers talk that way, and I've been exposed to that, and I've been around that all my life. So, but that's not the way in American sports, you're not really supposed to say things like that. So it's something I look back and I think, I probably shouldn't have said that. But I think what the intention, and it didn't come out the right way. The intention was actually to defend the team, because every week we were going up against teams that, that particular weekend we played against Atlanta in front of 40, 50,000. They'd spent, I don't know, 17 million on that striker, 10 million there, 20 million there, and that was like completely, it was like David and Goliath in relation to, and we just weren't at the level, and what I felt was no one ever talked about that. But look, again, football coaching, management is all about experience. It's all about learning from your experience. All about, if you get a knock, you got to reflect, review, learn from it. And that certainly is an experience where I definitely have learned a huge amount. I'm better for it. But it was, I also loved it. It was a great experience.
So on to your current role. After experiencing sort of such a wide range of cultures during your career, what are your aims back in the USA as the under-20s head coach, and how do you want to develop that side of things?
Well, firstly, the opportunity to come and work with the national team manager here, Greg Berhalter. I think he's a top manager. I've been all around the world and watched and studied some of the probably the best in the world. Greg's up there. Greg's someone. So the opportunity to come and learn and be exposed to different principles of play and a different way of working was really, really exciting to me. The opportunity, because I believe in what's happening here. I believe in the game. I believe in there's a lot of young talent, really good young talent coming through, and to be able to come and be a part of helping the game grow and getting as many of these young players into the first team, and then also competing at a World Cup. I think the tournaments like these and the Confederations Cup and going through World Cup qualifiers and Asian Cups and Golf Cup, these tournaments, like they're amazing experiences, and I can only, my experience at the Confederations Cup, like those things will live with you forever. I mean, we play. I remember the opening game we played against Russia. You won't believe it. Playing Russia in Russia, opening game of the tournament. The stadium was packed full of Russian supporters. We maybe had 10 Kiwis in the stadium, as we always did whenever we travelled away. And then the players all doing the national anthem and stood at the halfway point of the pitch. And then you got Vladimir Putin in a glass box, just hanging over the top of the stand there. And he does this speech. So the kickoff time now is late, and you've got Putin doing a speech. And I remember looking at the players, and some of the players were in tears, like crying. There's so much emotion. And he stopped talking. We didn't understand anything he was saying, obviously. And the whole stadium erupted. And I've never heard it. And some of the players were crying. I've never heard anything like it. Never experienced anything like it. And then they started so fast that day, Russia. So I think these moments, these tournaments, national pride and World Cups and all these are incredible I mean, not many people get the opportunity as a player or as a coach. So that's really exciting for me.
And also, see you obviously as a youth coach now in the States. Obviously, there are a lot of American players now coming through in the top European leagues, and they've been doing brilliantly. Are there any names that we should specifically be looking out for? Ones for the future. If you're going to sort of tip someone to come over to Europe and do really well, is there any names sort of in your current team that you'd sort of pick out?
Yeah, look, Sam's got the top on there for one of Gio Reyna. Like you've obviously seen him play. He's a outstanding young player. Look, this group of players that we have at the under-20s is exciting. It really is. There's a lot of good young players. We've got probably half of our players in Europe already. We've got a young kid, Conrad de la Fuente at Barcelona, who's an exciting player. We've got players in Germany that are really exciting players. And then we've got a whole bunch in MLS that are playing, hopefully in this tournament that's about to start this week. A lot of young players that are in first teams. There's some exciting players. Like the States they're developed. Before, years ago, players were going to college and playing for we don't have, we don't have any players in the national team that are people. So like the rest of the world now, young kids are leaving, getting into academies, getting into professional teams at a younger age. So the talent is there, but yeah, for sure, this is an exciting group. It really is.
So you've been through quite a lot in your time in management, but what are your ambitions for the rest of your coaching career?
Yeah, Sam, for me, I want to build a career. I want to be a top manager. I want to be the best manager I can be. I want to help develop players. I want to build good footballing teams. I want to manage at the highest level in the game, and I want to I want to be in the game till I look at people like Roy Hodgson and Ancelotti, like the managers that are up there that are still going like that. I want to be doing that 1,000 games and managing at the highest level and really, because it would show a huge amount of resilience and toughness and character and quality of work and growth and all the things that go with just being able to adapt and stay in the game. But that's something that I want to do. So like the impatience thing that I've mentioned a few times, like I just, I need to be patient and keep developing and keep learning and keep working. And so for right now, my focus is on doing an amazing job for the national team here. But for sure, long term, I want to manage at the highest level in the game.
And finally, to wrap up on, there are lots of young coaches who'll be watching this. And I was just wondering, what would your advice be to these young people who are trying to get into the world of coaching in football?
Yeah, I think it's a broad question. It's a good question, and I think probably a lot of managers and coaches, would say the same thing. And it is all the things that you read in books and all the the famous quotes and things like that. But someone spoke to me a few weeks ago and they asked me the same thing, and they were asking me all sorts of questions about coaching and building teams and all that. And at the time they were doing something else. They were doing another line of work. And the conversation with me was like, yeah, because I'm deciding whether I want to be a coach, and I said, look, this is a tough industry. This is an industry. This is a profession that if you want to do it, you cannot be indecisive. You cannot be half in. You can't be like, I'm not sure. You have to be all in. You have to be fully committed. You have to be so passionate and obsessive about wanting to grow and become the best coach you can be, and to learn. Like, it's such an amazing profession, because it's not like you work from 9 till 5 and then you leave your desk and then it's done. Like, the life of a coach it's the whole of your life. It is who you are. So it's just constant growth, development, fighting for your career. But it starts with the obsession and the passion and love for the game. It really does. As basic as that sounds, that's what everything drives from that point there. Because otherwise, I don't think you can stay the course. I think you go in a different direction.
So we like to ask this as a final question. In 10 years' time, Anthony Hudson, where do you see yourself?
I want to be in the Premier League.
Brilliant. If you had to pick any club, like, obviously you can't just cherry pick a team, but if you had to pick any team to start off with in current world football, who would it be?
Yeah, look, I mean, I two places I used to go to as a kid, and for reasons that are close to my family, my dad, going to Stamford Bridge, and also going to Stoke City. Like, there's something very special, and there's a big connection there with me and my family. It would be a dream one day to manage one of those teams, and why not? So that's something that I for sure is like my big dream, my big goal, and I'm not going to change that for sure.
Well, Anthony, thank you very much for coming on. You've been a brilliant guest. You've given us so much insight. And we'd just like to thank you for coming on the podcast, really.
Archie, Sam, it's been a pleasure, and you guys are doing a great job. So it's been. I hope you've got something from this, and it's great to meet you guys. I'm looking forward to seeing more of you in the future.
Thank you very much, Anthony. All the best.
All right, guys. Speak
Cheers.
soon.
Thanks. Bye.